This is Modern Persian Food,
a culinary podcast for today's food enthusiast.
We talk about classic Persian flavors,
modern recipes,
and embracing culture and identity through food.
I'm Bita.
And I'm also Bita.
Welcome to our show. Hi, friends. Welcome to episode 166. Today, we're talking about Persian-inspired brunch. And we're going to talk about adding some Persian elements to your special occasion celebrations. We have Mother's Day right around the corner. Then there's Father's Day, and then rolling into graduation and wedding season. But really, any time is a good time to enjoy some of the great elements of a Persian breakfast. And I'm joined here today with my lovely co-host, Bita. Hey, Bita June.
Hi, Bita June. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. I'm excited to be talking about Persian brunch, Persian breakfast. It's one of my favorite meals. It's fun to host it. It's fun to attend it. It's a little bit lighter. It's not as formal. And from an entertaining standpoint, it's a little easier than like a standard sit down or elaborate Persian dinner. So I think that it's a great opportunity if you're playing around with Persian flavors and kind of want to add some Persian flair to your breakfast or brunch, that this is a great way to do it, where we can talk about some of the traditional elements that come with the Persian breakfast. And then we have some fun modern twists that we've been doing, and I love to incorporate. So we can share that with people, and hopefully our listeners will be inspired to take a stab at it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear what you're saying about it being a little easier as a host, because there's something it's just more casual. It's not as much formality, come over for brunch, come over for breakfast, join me for tea, coffee, a little something sweet, a little something savory. And I do enjoy hosting a brunch, and I love breakfast in a restaurant or to be invited to a breakfast or a brunch. There's just something that's really special about somebody else making me breakfast. And I don't know if that's from years and years of being a mother or if it's for everyone, but it's just such a special treat. There's all the chopping of fruit and preparing of the different elements of breakfast. And I know as a mom, Mother's Day brunch is a really, really nice thing. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, you mentioned wedding season. There's going to be a lot of showers happening, I know. So that's actually a great occasion also for when to host is like a bridal shower or a baby shower or like a pre-wedding thing that you can definitely do brunch. Let's chat about it. Let's chat about what are some of the kind of more traditional elements when you think of a Persian breakfast or a Persian brunch, like what comes to mind? So what are some of the key things for you that you like to include?
What makes a Persian breakfast unique would have to be that there are fresh elements. In my opinion, it's because there's a lot of fresh elements often in a Persian breakfast or brunch. The other thing is that the bread plays a huge role. The bread, butter, and cheese is really super iconic in a Persian breakfast. And I'm just drooling when I think about the fluffy barbari with kind of like the creamy spreads and the aromatic jams and sometimes some feta and nut and then fresh herbs and sliced vegetables. How about for you?
Yeah. Building off of what you just said, the bread and the butter and the cheeses and especially the jams. Typically, we'll see like a variety of different jams, like 3 different types at least on the table. Jams like quince jam or rose or albalu, which is the sour cherry. I love how there's like a mix of different jams, even simple ones like carrot jam or orange peel jam. It's so fun to kind of have a little bit of the different flavors. So I definitely agree with you on that. And, regarding fresh, definitely fresh, you just mentioned some sliced vegetables, lots of herbs sometimes can be featured on it, definitely fruit, some of these like really fresh elements. It makes it very interactive, that like you can have these fresh little bites that you can make with the herbs or put a little dollop of jam with butter or with some cheese. For me, when I think about like a breakfast or a Persian brunch, the main thing for me are the eggs. I love having like a big centerpiece or really showcasing a big platter of eggs. And actually, it doesn't even have to be a platter. There's several different ways that you can have eggs. So if you did want to have a platter, you can have even just like a big pan of like sunny side up eggs at the like simplest form. But you can also, there's lots of different variations. There's a version called nargisi, which I actually did the other day when I was hosting my cousins over, where I sauteed just a little bit of garlic and then some spinach, like a bed of spinach that I just lightly sauteed, and I cracked a bunch of sunny side up eggs right in the pan. And what's fun is that I actually like serving it right in the big pan, right straight to the table. But if you wanted to, you could obviously put it onto a beautiful platter or plate them. Another version is like omelette style with tomatoes, and you just saute the tomatoes a little bit. And it's not as much as like a traditional shashuka. It's more like really just kind of like caramelizing some of the tomatoes, and they kind of like hold their integrity a little bit more. A couple other variations, there's like more like a saucisse. And what you can do these days is actually like little sliced hot dogs, like little coins of them, or sausage and have little coins of it. And then again, cracking the eggs all around. Or if you wanted to do like a light scramble, I really enjoy my eggs more soft scrambled versus hard scrambled, but to each their own. So it's kind of like fun to have like the like lusciousness of the eggs with these different ingredients. And one of my favorites is khorma malus, is a kermanshah dish that my dad would always make for us when we were little. And I love that. Anytime that like, I'll have this dish for breakfast, I'll have it for lunch or like a late night snack, but it's with dates and just caramelizing the dates lightly. You can also throw some walnuts in there and serving the eggs currently any style that you want. I enjoy them sunny side up, but that's like one of my favorites. But having like eggs in one of those forms, or, you could even just have like hard-boiled eggs or soft-boiled eggs. This last year, I ended up getting a set of the little egg stands, which I enjoy having around to kind of like showcase when I have eggs or when I'm serving like soft-boiled eggs, that it makes it a little bit more fun.
Cool. Yeah, eggs are huge. Eggs are really huge. On the daily, the traditional breakfast was nuna panero, moraba, or honey, like we said, the bread and butter thing. But I know my dad used to have eggs every single day. The soft boil, he loved it. He had the little stand, and you had this little spoon, and
yeah, asali
every day. And your sweet egg khorma malus with the dates reminds me of what my mom used to make. My folks are both Azeri. They're from the Turkish-speaking part of Iran, Azerbaijan, and Tabriz on both sides. And my mom used to make a sweet egg dish called khagine. And she would make it sometimes for breakfast, but also sometimes when she just had a sweet tooth. And it's kind of essentially just eggs and sugar. And my grandma, I have memories of my grandma doing it as well. I don't honestly know what else is in there. It's definitely eggs and sugar, maybe a little bit of flour, but I can see my grandma making it on the stovetop. It kind of browns up, and it's really good. It's so simple, but it's a really yummy sweet treat. But yeah, eggs are huge. And then, of course, the more omelette style. My family would have that on Sundays. My dad was a surgeon, and he was up early during the week, and Sundays were his day to rest and have a later day. And that's when we would have a big omelette breakfast every Sunday as a family. And I have memories of that. And it's a kind of like the way that my family would make it is almost like a shakshuka, and have vegetables and little tomato sauce and things. Not quite as tomato heavy as a shakshuka, but a lot of vegetables alongside the fried eggs.
That sounds delicious. Let's talk a little bit more about the breads. So, some of the traditional ones, sangak, which is a more flat bread. It's not completely flat like a lavash. It's a little thicker than that. And it is actually traditionally cooked on hot pebbles. So they have these big bread ovens that are lined with pebbles on the bottom. And they use these long sticks to put this long piece of dough. I'm talking about like 3 feet long piece of dough that they lay carefully onto the hot pebbles, and they cook it in these ovens. And then when it's ready, they pull it out. And sometimes there's a couple of the pebbles stuck to it still that they like pick off. And that bread, it has a little crunch to the outside of it from the high heat. It has a little bit of chew. It is so delicious. And if you can get your hands on some of that, it is so special. Some specialty Persian markets will have that. I've heard people try to make it themselves. It's super delicious.
Yeah, it's kind of smoky on the outside from that charring and the stoneness of it. It has almost like a smokiness to it to me. And then the texture, so it's not very crunchy. It's actually soft and chewy and almost has like an elasticity to it. I can't describe it. It's really special. There's nothing like it.
Yeah. What other kinds of breads?
My favorite is berberi. Berberi is a hydration bread. I've had the opportunity to make it a few times. And you keep adding water to it in the kneading process, in the kneading and rising process, which results in a really fluffy bread that has kind of like air bubbles. And it's really similar, in my opinion, to focaccia. We had the fortunate opportunity to go to Italy last fall, and they actually would sometimes serve focaccia for breakfast. And nuna berberi is, to me, a lot like focaccia, except for it's pretty simple in its toppings. The toppings don't really have a ton of olive oil. They have like little seeds, maybe sesame seeds, pretty much just sesame seeds I've seen on nuna berberi. It's often just white flour, but can also be made whole wheat. And it's just so fluffy and light and delicious and yummy with like butter and jam or pretty much anything inside of it. I love it.
Yeah, so good. So good. You know, you also see more easier to find breads like lavash or pita bread on the table too. But I just think the main point is having some sort of bread to eat at the Persian breakfast table that you can add your butter to, add your cheese to, feta cheese. You can add a cream cheese and maybe some jam or some herbs. Speaking of like creamy toppings, tell us a little bit about sashir.
My one time that I had the occasion to go to Iran pre-revolution as a kid, I have memories of something really freaking delicious that we were spreading on our breakfast. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. It was like, seemed like butter, but it was more creamy than butter. And then as of late, I started to pick up some like creme fraiche and try to like experiment with recreating that. And recently I hosted a brunch and I stirred in some saffron honey to kind of try to make a yummy topping for French toast and kind of Persian-ify it a little bit. And that was kind of cool. But what is it? You tell me.
So sashir translates to sad-shir. Sad is the top of like milk. So it's like curdled cream. It's super thick and rich and creamy and really high fat is what it is. It's basically the fat off of the milk, the top of the milk. So, you know, a lot of times when people think about like kind of old school Iran and, you know, memories of people growing up in Iran, they'll always have fond memories of sashir, as you were saying too, about the creaminess and just how it was so special. So we would be amiss if we didn't mention that. Also, nuts are a big thing too. I love having nuts on the table, walnuts, almonds. You can also soak them to make them a little bit more tender. Those are kind of like things that can go in a sabzi khordan platter, you know, the fresh herbs. You can have that kind of for breakfast. You can have it on the side for any meals, but those are definitely some of the main things.
Yeah, I would say walnuts would be the main, you know, kind of Persian breakfast nut.
Yeah, exactly. And you could even, if you wanted to like do a little decoration, you can have like a little bowl of honey and you can have a few pieces of walnuts kind of like floating in there too, to just make it a little bit more special.
Cool.
At all like aesthetically pleasing. There's sometimes some warm soupy elements. We've talked about halim before, which is kind of like a wheat porridge type of dish that has meat. I make a cheat version with rotisserie chicken or some turkey in there and oatmeal and broth. I love it. It's very cozy. You top that with some cinnamon and sugar and some melted butter, which is like a fun go-to. There's also adasi, which is kind of like a lentil soup. I know that they do that in Esfahan and serve it with the halim. And I believe that also an Azeri thing that your family does as well with the adasi.
It must be a craving from my ancient ancestors because sometimes On the regular, I have oatmeal as my Persian porridge, and then I don't eat it in the savory way that you serve it, Bita June, with the meat and butter, but I have normal oatmeal with, seeds and nuts and walnuts. And I do sometimes put pomegranate arils and pistachios and make it more Persian-ish, and walnuts. But every once in a while, I feel like I need protein first thing in the morning. And that's when I will have lentils. I love lentils. They're so nutrition packed with tons of protein and folic acid and iron and all good things and fiber. And so I just kind of make a soupy lentil dish that I enjoy having in the morning first thing.
That sounds great. I think I should need to incorporate that a little bit too, because you're right. A lot of times it's hard to have protein if you're not having like eggs or some meats. Sometimes it's not easy to have protein. It's like if you have a bowl of cereal, you're not really getting any protein, or some pancakes or waffles. There's no protein there, not very much at least. So yeah, that's a good call to add some of the lentils. And I think that kind of like the main thing that a Persian breakfast will have is definitely a chai shirin, is a sweet tea, your beautiful amber colored tea first thing in the morning. I think typically when you think about a Persian breakfast, you think tea over coffee. And a lot of times the tea is sweetened with a little bit of sugar, and it makes it a fun kind of warm way to start your meal with. So if you're going to be entertaining, it's always nice to have like a pot of tea brewing.
Yeah, when I hosted a recent brunch, I just brewed a bunch in the normal way that we brew it, and then I put it in a carafe. I put it in a fancy thermos type of thing so that it was ready to go for anyone who might want it. I think I had, 15 or 20 people. So sometimes it could be hard to have your tea constantly running. So I just pre-made it, and that was nice.
Yeah, good call. So let's talk about some of the kind of the modern ways that we entertain when we're hosting breakfast or brunch. That's a great idea to make the batch brew your tea and have that ready to go. What are some of the things that you've been playing around with when you've been hosting?
Well, if I want to try to add a little Persian flair, the easiest way is what I often bake. I like to bake is I will add some Persian spices and aromatics to my baking, and to, in essence, add like a baklava or a Yazdi cake flavor with cardamom, cinnamon, cardamom, some green pistachio. I recently ordered some Italian chopped green pistachios, and they looked beautiful on this French toast casserole that I made. And again, the saffron honey is really nice. Dates are a great way to add a Persian or Middle Eastern touch. You can do dates with walnuts inside. They're unique. They add a little flavor. I'll sometimes stir them in for some natural sweetness into things that I'm baking or cooking. And that's kind of, in a nutshell, how I add a little Persian touch. How about you?
Yeah, I hear you. Even just adding some of those simple ingredients really kind of makes a difference. And even if you're going to be making like pancakes or waffles, if you're making them from scratch, you can always add some of those ingredients that you listed into the batter mix. Another way to do it is if you just add some of these jams that we've been talking about as toppings. So instead of regular syrup, you can add like jam. You can actually even thin out your jam with a little bit of warm water too if you want to have it more syrupy, and just use that as kind of the topping for on top of, some of the bready, more traditional breakfast things. I was actually playing around with a recipe I wanted to share with you. It's kind of like a little bit of a cheat, but I had some fun before we kind of go into some of the other modern elements that I just wanted to share. It was a lot of fun making it. The inspiration of it was one of my girlfriends brought back from Croatia for me some pistachio cream. So it's kind of like, think of like Nutella, but made with pistachios instead of hazelnut. And it was so good.
Oh, I've had some.
Oh, have you?
It's very decadent and rich. Really good.
Right. So I made like a bready dish, kind of like, if you look at it, do you know what like a babka is? It's like a kind of like bread that is like spirally and it has lots of different layers. So you can use puff pastry for this kind of version that I did, but I actually used pizza dough.
Oh.
And I just wanted to kind of try it out and see if I could make like a really simple bready, breakfasty dish. And so I used pizza dough and I rolled it out into like a rectangle, and I put a layer of this pistachio cream down. I, on top of that, put some slivered pistachios for a little bit of crunch. I put a little bit of orange zest, fresh orange zest that I zested right on top. And then I added Zidishk to it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, barberries that we make like a barberry rice, or you can add them to other dishes. But I wanted to have a little bit of like a little bright punch to it and still have some Persian flavors.
That's fun.
Yeah. So I layered some Zidishk in there. And then what I did was I kind of folded it up on top of each other. I cut it down the middle, exposing all the different layers. And I kind of like braided it, a very basic like fold over kind of braid, and I baked it up, and it was super fun. I ended up cutting it into slices. I shared some of it with some of my friends, and it was a lot of fun. So just saying that you can kind of take a recipe and add your Persian ingredients to it and make it more Persian-ified, and a great way to kind of celebrate some of these flavors that we have.
So creative and resourceful. I mean, the fact that you used pizza dough. And so what type of pizza dough? The kind that you buy that's already made?
Yeah, this was just like from the grocery store.
Uh-huh.
Pizza dough. So it was like I didn't have to like worry about like thawing out puff pastry or kind of making anything from scratch. It was literally like if you get pizza dough from your market, you can like whip this together and make a super unique. You could use this for breakfast. You could do it as a dessert. And it was kind of fun to kind of really, you know, again, celebrate that pistachio flavor, and with the two different kinds, with the cream and then with the actual slivered pistachio, getting the different textures of it.
Yeah. So the pistachio cream, I'm actually not sure that I've had that. What I'm thinking of is pistachio butter, and they have it at the farmer's market over at the Ferry Building. My sister-in-law gets it for me sometimes. Pistachio butter. It's like a nut butter.
Oh, this actually has a little bit of like chocolate in there too. So it's kind of like Nutella, but with pistachio.
Oh.
Because Nutella is like chocolate and hazelnut.
I was thinking it was a savory bread. It's a sweet.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Wow. Very unique. And then the kind of the tang of the barberries.
Yeah.
Cool. Great idea.
Yeah, thanks. You know, we talked about the traditional styles of bread, but like any kind of bread works to bring to your table. If you want to bring like a round boule, or you want to have whole wheat, or even like if you wanted to put like some sourdough, it doesn't matter. Just have some sort of bread.
Or focaccia.
Or focaccia. You know, I mentioned like lavash or like pita bread even. Whatever you can kind of get your hands on is good to like kind of soak up whatever fun food you're making, kind of soak up some of those eggs and make little bites. Some other things to add these days, I like to add some different kind of meats onto the table. I think it's fun to add some bacon or smoked salmon, depending on who your audience is. It's fun to kind of have these other protein sources. And also, let's talk about some fun breakfast drinks.
Okay.
I mean, you know, when you think about brunch or breakfast, like a lot of times mimosas are kind of like the go-to drink. You can make a version of a mimosa with some sort of the different Persian jams that we said, just have some sparkling and add some of the morabba and get the little different flavors. Is there anything that you like to drink specifically when you're having brunch?
Well, when I hosted brunch recently, I had mimosas ready to go. I had some fun juices to mix with my mimosas. We had iced it, and nobody was in the mood that particular day. I think I had the tea and the coffee going, and that's the route that they went. But I know that I do always think it's festive and fun. And we have some fun restaurants locally. There's one in particular I'm thinking of in Palo Alto that has a mimosa flight, and they also have a Bloody Mary bar. So I think that's a lot of fun if you have that kind of crowd that kind of wants to, you know, party a little bit. You can kind of offer a do-it-yourself drink bar, either a Bloody Mary bar or a mimosa bar. That's a lot of fun for people to get to kind of participate and put their own drink together.
Yeah, if you want to like step it up even a little bit more, you can rim the top of your glasses with some sumac for those Bloody Marys. I think that would be a fun little twist too.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I hope that people are inspired to consider hosting a brunch or a Persian breakfast with their friends and families. There's lots of occasions coming up, but no reason not to treat yourself and make some of these fun dishes for yourself as well.
Excellent. Well, you know, we took a bit of a pause on our Ask the Beats segment, And I thought it would be fun to start having a new segment of sorts where Bita, June, and I review restaurants. I've personally always had this fantasy of being like a female Anthony Bourdain who gets to travel the world and try different restaurants. And we have had the opportunity to do it. Whenever we have the opportunity, it's a lot of fun. So if you see that popping up on social media, that's a direction that at least I personally have been having a lot of fun doing. I did it in a new Mexican restaurant that we have locally here in Menlo Park. Also in this kind of segment, I thought it would be fun to share on any collabs that we're doing where we're spreading the awareness and the flavors of Persian food in any kind of way, shape, or form possible.
Yeah, and doesn't mean that we're not going to do the Ask the Beat. So if you guys still have questions, definitely send them our way. We love answering and connecting with our audience. But yeah, it's a good opportunity to kind of showcase some of the restaurants that we go to and check out. And specifically, Beata did a collab with one. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, so there's a pizza guy, literally called the Neighborhood Pizza Guy, right here in my neighborhood, and a real nice fella. He took over a coffee shop that's been a staple in our neighborhood for many years, and he added on, his name is Matt, and he added on to Cafe Zoe something that he is calling a weekly pizza lab. He calls it the Pizza Lab, a rotating experiment. And what he does is he will trial all sorts of different ingredients to come up with like a fun, really unique kind of pizza. And so he and I had been collaborating kind of on social media and through messaging and in person when I'm in town. What could be a Persian pizza? So we went back and forth, and there are so many flavors in Persian cuisine, and we kind of struggled for a while of finding something that could work on a pizza, like what you would expect from a pizza. And so in the end, we ended up with an eggplant, kind of like almost like a kashka bottom June twist, but he added his own flair. And I have to say that I was really impressed with what he came up with. Basically, he took my recipe for bottom June dip, and then he used some aged mozzarella, some paneer. He just chose to use fresh mint, some lemon zest, and he roasted the eggplant with all kinds of spices, some of the ones that I recommended, like turmeric and saffron, and some of that he used on his own, like za'atar. And he ended up with this pizza with caramelized onions that was just so good and apparently did really well. So that was a fun collaboration, and he only offered it for 1 week. So that was fun to be able to share kind of with family and friends here locally.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. I wish I was able to get my hands on that, but good inspiration. We actually make pizza at home a lot, and we're planning on doing it this weekend while we have some family visiting. So maybe I'll try adding some eggplant to our next version and think of you guys in the meantime.
Yeah, sounds good. If I do another collab with them, I'll be sure to let you know what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Bita June, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. This was fun. I am definitely hungry for some breakfast. These sweet and savory dishes definitely are very unique and a fun way to host friends or for yourself this season.
Excellent. Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Cheers. Till next time. Bye-bye. You've been listening to the Modern Persian Food Podcast with Bita and Bita. Thanks for spending time with us. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, consider telling a friend or giving us a good rating. You can subscribe to our show for free on your favorite podcasting app, or find us online at modernpersianfood.com or on Instagram for the recipes and information we talked about today. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and see you next time.